Alright, last thing I want to talk about in relation to fiscal and monetary policy is a couple of downsides with it. One of them is lag. Time lag or policy lag, same thing. But the idea here is there's going to be a separation in time between problems beginning in the economy and policy action having an effect on trying to fix it. Okay? So let's say that a problem begins, and how about this? Imagine a time your friend got really mad at you. Alright? Now, the problem began at one point over here, but you didn't realize that the problem had begun at all, right? So you start to realize that there's something wrong. Your friend is mad at you for some reason. They're ghosting you on text. They're giving the cold shoulder. So the problem has begun when they first become mad at you. And then some time passes until you realize that there is something wrong here. Well, what do you do now? Well, you need to figure out why they're mad at you. So you have some more time passing while you're trying to figure that out. And then after that, once you figure out why they're mad at you, you have a little bit more time that passes while you're trying to figure out what to do about it. Okay? And then you finally take action. So you send them a nice edible arrangement, or you say you're sorry, or you tell them to stuff it, whatever it is. All right, so the problem began over here. All right, and then you had time passing until you actually do something about it. This is called inside lag, all right? So we call it inside lag. Imagine here in this case, everything is happening inside, right? So deliberating inside yourself about what to do about the situation, about why they're mad at you, etc. And so then you take action, and you have to wait to see what the effect is going to be. We call that outside lag. So here you send them that edible arrangement, and you have to see what the reaction to it is going to be. Okay, outside lag. Now the action is happening outside of you. So the problem began over here, and then inside lag, you finally take action, all right, from the time the problem began to the time you did something about it. And then outside lag, from the time you did something about it to seeing what the reaction is going to be. So you see something similar happening here when the economy, with economic problems, the economic problem began over here, right? Let's say we're talking about fiscal policy. Economic problem began over here. Time passes, right? Well, we got to figure out, A, that something is wrong in the economy. And then more time passes while we figure out exactly what's wrong. So we talk to the policymakers and the economists and see what it is they say. And then Congress has to decide what they're going to do about it. Well, let's add a whole lot more time onto that. So the economic problem begins over here. Congress finally takes action over here. That's inside lag. Congress takes action, and we see what the effects of congressional action are. All right, so that's outside lag. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, because of this lag issue, is that the problem begins over here. Congress doesn't take action until over here. It could be several months after the economic problem has begun. Things have changed. Conditions have changed. The conditions could be better. The conditions could be worse. Right? Basically, Congress is addressing an issue here as it had stood a whole long time ago, right? Several months ago. Which means they could be doing too little, they could be doing too much, they could be doing the wrong thing, and instead of making things better, they could actually be making things worse. All right? So monetary policy also suffers from this, but in a different type, all right? So fiscal policy, you have lots more players in the game. So you're talking about 435 congressmen, 100 senators, and then you throw a president in there. So you've got 536 cooks in the kitchen who all have to deliberate and decide on what they're going to do. Whereas when we're looking at the Fed and monetary policy, they can decide with just, 12 voters at the FOMC meeting and be exercising monetary policy later that day or the next day. And they can do it in the amounts of billions of dollars a day, or at least in the way they do it now, they can just immediately adjust interest rates. Okay? So the Federal Reserve is able to take action a whole lot faster than what the federal government can through fiscal policy. All right. So this whole time lag issue affects both of them. It affects both fiscal and monetary, but it's more of a problem for fiscal than monetary. All right. Last thing to worry about here in concerns with fiscal and to a lesser degree monetary, but again, this is mostly a fiscal problem, is there are political motivations involved, right? So politicians are mostly concerned about short-term political concerns, not necessarily long-term best interests of the economy. So because of this, they're motivated in such a way to maybe not exercise fiscal policy quite the way that it's ideally supposed to. So it's easy to spend more and it's easy to cut taxes. It is difficult to spend less and it's difficult to raise taxes because somebody wants me the short end of the stick on that one. If you cut spending, that means that the people who benefited from that spending are no longer getting those benefits. And then if you raise taxes, of course, there are going to be some people out there who have to pay more money. All right. Typically, everybody's very willing to raise taxes on one group, and that group is anybody who is not them. All right. But politically speaking, cutting spending, raising taxes is more difficult. The other two are easier. So what that means is that fiscal policy doesn't always work out the way exactly that it's supposed to. So during the bad times, what you'll see is increased spending. Right. If there's a recession, you'll see government spend more. But they won't necessarily tax less. Sometimes they'll actually tax more because, we need more tax revenue to pay for the increased spending, right? And then when times are good, the idea there is that you can do contractionary fiscal policy, that you're supposed to have the government spend less, but instead lots of times the government spends more because more tax revenue is coming in, so the politicians have more money to play around with, and they spend more as a result, right? So they do more programs, start new agencies, etc. And then instead of raising taxes, contractionary fiscal policy, when times are good, they're more likely to lower taxes, right? Times are good, we're bringing in so much extra tax revenue, why spend this money, or why tax this money? We'll tax less in order to, reward people for the good times, I guess. All right, so of the four elements here, the fiscal policy, right, of expansion or contractionary, only one of them is reliably done, which is increasing spending when economic times are bad. All right, but the other three elements, lowering taxes during bad times doesn't always happen, lots of times it doesn't. And then during the good times, Congress and government is unlikely to do either of those. Instead of lowering spending, it's more likely to raise spending, and instead of raising taxes, they're more likely to lower taxes during the good times. So these are practical problems when it comes to the implementation of both fiscal and monetary policy.